Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 9 of the V8ESC Backfire podcast. In the booth with me, as usual, I have champions Johnny Brandon and Tony Kloosterman. Good evening, gentlemen.
Hi, everyone.
Evening.
And we have Mr. Sam Boozin on the wheels of steel in the background, keeping quiet. So tonight we will be having our usual format. We'll have a review of rounds 19 and 20 from Road Atlanta, perhaps discuss some driving standards, anything naughty that we see on Discord, and then run through the standings. I then put the guys on the spot and ask them for a driver of the meeting. Hopefully we have a guest driver tonight in Mr. Andrew Hoffman. Bear in mind, he comes from the land down under, and he's also a long-distance lorry driver. So hopefully the stars will align, and he will be parked up safe and sound and unloaded, and will be able to talk to us. We'll also have a preview of Silverstone this coming Saturday, the final rounds of this season, super sprint races. A little bit of iRacing news, and also if you guys have got any questions, pop them in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer them at the end. And then we'll wrap up and say goodnight to you all. So let's kick off with Road Atlanta. For me personally, it's one of those tracks that I absolutely dread. And then when I get there, I thoroughly enjoy it. So I don't know what's going on in my head with that track. So starting with you, Tony, Road Atlanta, how did it go for you?
Well, first race was not so good actually. Made a mistake in the first corner, and I got in Johnny's way. Not Johnny's fault by any stretch of the imagination. I thought I could get inside Richard Warmingham, and didn't realize Johnny's car placement. So right to the back on the first lap, and clawed my way back up to 13th without any incident the rest of the way. So it was okay. Having to stop for fast repair obviously really hurts you. But second race was much better. Really enjoyed it. It's a track that I've done so many laps on that I think it's lost some of its appeal to me, but it's still a good race, good track to race on.
Yeah, I must admit, I did thoroughly enjoy it. Just would like to put into the broadcast that I did beat Tony in race 1, obviously. Johnny, you had a second place in race 1 and a fourth place in race 2. Where was that in your expectations? Par for the course, or was you hoping to do a bit better?
I was hoping to do a bit better. I said I saw the pace of Chris and Tony and the NQR guys around there. Once I'd seen their pace, I was extremely happy with those results.
Yeah, I'm sure we're going to talk about Chris Jackson in a little while, but for those that didn't see it, Chris Jackson won race 1, Tony won race 2. So, Tony, I know for a fact that you guys put a hell of a lot of work into your setups. With Chris, was that just, did the setup just suit Chris? Did the track just suit Chris? Or are we seeing another Chris Jackson come back and he's going to start winning races regularly?
Well, he's always had the ability to win races regularly. I think last weekend, obviously the setup and the track suited him. He didn't get a lot of practice in, and he's new father for the last couple of years, and his little boy takes up an awful lot of time. So he hasn't put as much practice in, I'd say, this year as he has in previous years. But certainly the practice that he is putting in is paying dividends. And, this was a track that he just clicked at. he had outstanding pace, in the practices and then again in the race.
And Johnny, one of your teammates, Rich Warmingham, he had a podium third place in race one and a fifth in race two. Now, Rich is one of those drivers that has got better and better and better and better. But even I was surprised with his results in the main series at Road Atlanta. So a similar sort of question to you. Was it your team setup that suited him? Does the track suit him? And is Rich going to show that pace at every round?
I think so. Yes to all the above, really. I mean, we used the Racetech set. Yeah, we use the Racetech setup. So I don't want to sound like I'm making excuses, but I've been getting a problem lately with my computer updates, or does a Windows, some sort of Windows scan, and it seems to affect everything. And sometimes I'm not even eligible; it won't recognise me. We'll win the second race, but I think it cost me pace. So I went in and did a little test mode afterwards, and went 4 times quicker straight away. So it's a strange one. I think I just had a bad weekend, but that doesn't change the fact that Rich was absolutely flying, and he's just been getting better and better and better. So yeah, just as he's getting up there, same as Chris. Just as he's up there, starts nicking the wins. They're going to get rid of the car. I'll bring out a new car, a new tyre model. Whee.
Yeah, most definitely. We'll talk about that later. I say I enjoy watching Rich because when Rich first joined the series, he was sort of middle to back with me. Then I've sort of seen him move up to finishing top 15s. Then he's been finishing top 10s regularly, and now hopefully he's moving on up to finish top fives and maybe get a race win or two. So yeah, well
I think
done,
it helps
Rich.
with XVR the way we are as a team, because we all practice and help each other and point things out to each other. And Rich has got me to chase, and he's getting closer and closer. I've got Foggy to chase. It gets closer and closer. We just need to find somebody faster than Foggy to help Foggy, but he's fast enough as it is. And the same with Lane. We all help each other out if and give little pointers where we see it going wrong. Usually, the faster guys are helping the slightly slower guys, and the gap's just constantly closing and closing and closing, which is helping us as a team all round and working well. So, but yeah, Rich has definitely leapt forward in the V8. So hopefully it continues.
Yeah, he's done an amazing job, and certainly his pace has been noticed by our team.
Yeah, or hopefully new car, new tire model. All you fast guys are going to be really slow, and us slow guys are going to be really fast. You never know. So driving standards, something that we review from every round. There wasn't any protests from this round. I usually, from my lowly driving position, tend to see a lot of the accidents that happen because they either happen right in front of me, right behind me, or right on top of me. And there isn't anything that really sticks out as being naughty. A little bit worried about one of Nikolai's rejoins, but apart from that, I didn't see much. Tony, anything from you apart from your coming together with Johnny?
Yeah, that would be the worst one of the day, I think. There were a couple of incidents, but in each case, I think that guys were being respectful. I know there was a couple of folks that held up and waited after an unintentional spin, and afterwards in the chat, I think everything was very cordial as well. So it was, I think one of the better meetings overall.
And Johnny, from your point of view, obviously the Tony incident. But apart from that, anything naughty that you saw?
Just Chris's pace, really.
Yeah, that was naughty.
No, apart from that, it was usual good racing. I think Road Atlanta's it's a bit of a single file circuit. There's a couple of places to overtake, and that's about it. The rest of the circuit, there really is very little chance of doing an overtake, and I think people just sort of accept that and wait for those spots, which tends to lend itself to decent racing, I think.
Yeah, I agree with that. And as Tony alluded to, we do have a look at what's going on in the chat in Discord, and there wasn't anything nasty going on there. There wasn't too much moaning and complaining, which is good. So moving on to the standings, just a little hint there for Sam. So top three in the championship. So Johnny, you're out in front. You've got a 176 point lead on George, and Tony is a further 100 points behind. Now, mathematically, it's not over. There are 450 race points to be gained and 30 bonus points. And we all know how important the bonus points are from the sprint series. Are you able to tell us your tactics, Johnny, for the upcoming race?
No.
Good enough.
I'm just going to do the same as every week. Go out there, have fun, see what happens. That's actually more of a cushion than I thought I had. It feels quite huge compared to the recent weekend in the sprint series. So yeah, just do the normal thing. See what happens.
We could make it interesting. Just reset all the points for one race.
Could do, but probably best not to.
Okay, guys. So moving on to the club championship, Gary Croft is in a similar position with 178 point lead over Nikolai. And then Ant Woodward is a further 190 points behind Nikolai. Into the team championships, Tony. It looks like NQR Holden will be taking away the team championship this year, barring any major disasters, with a 404 point lead. Are you happy with that?
Very happy with that, but kind of given to us. So we'll accept it nonetheless. At the end of the day, they don't ask how, they ask where you finish. So a bit of a gift, but certainly we'll take it.
Good. Safe driver award. Interestingly, top three in the championship are in the top four positions in the Safe Driver Award. So Johnny's currently leading with George second. Lane O'Connor has popped into third, and Tony, you're sitting fourth. Onto the Fred Bingham Forever Forward Award for the amount of overtakes in the season. Johnny, you've got a massive lead in that at the moment of 28 points over Victor. And then George is another 4 points behind that. And then I've talked about this a lot. And you two have sort of said, well, I didn't really realise and things like that. But, we keep talking about it. So, total wins in the championship since day one. Tony has been leading that for a long, long time. Johnny, you managed to catch Tony. And then Tony, with a win at Road Atlanta, has gone ahead again. So 3 more races on the table.
What is it now then?
It's now Tony's on 31 wins and Johnny's on 30.
Okay.
So 3 races to go. Do you think you can finish the season on top of the pile, Johnny?
Who knows? I'm not going to be so presumptuous to say anything like that with somebody like Tony Cruz winning the races. So, yeah, I seem to be all right.
We could be tied at the end of the year still.
I was just thinking that, to be honest. 32-32. But that, that's a bit presumptuous as well. So we'll see what happens.
And Tony, obviously, that's something that you've held on to for a long time. If you don't win the Drivers' Championship, but you end the season, still being the all-time race winner for the championship, small consolation, maybe.
Yeah, small consolation. I didn't even know that was a thing until you brought it up a couple of months ago. So, yeah, I've got a couple of seasons on everybody else, maybe a season and a half, considering I missed half of one season. But obviously, when new drivers come in, we get some quick people, and Johnny's obviously shown his pace, as well as Nickel. When Nickel was here, he'd be close to 30 now too if he had stuck around this year. So it's nice to be on top, but sometimes you only get that with age.
Yeah. So. Like I say, Tony's on 31, Johnny is on 30, and Nicole, who hasn't really raced since, I believe, the first meeting of this season, 15. The only other person in double figures is Victor Tanaka on 13. And I'm hearing on the grapevine that Michael Evdoka will be back next season, and he currently sits on 7 race wins. Plus, of course, we've had a few new winners this season as well. So, that list is getting a bit longer. So, Road Atlanta over. I have a funny feeling I know the answer to the question that I'm going to pose to you already. I'm going to go to Johnny first, put you on the spot for your driver of the meeting from Road Atlanta.
I'm going to say Rich Warming, but Chris Jackson's a close. That was such a shock, his pace, to me. No disrespect to Chris, but it is such a wow factor of the pace he had there. He's a close set. Maybe Chris and Rich, my vote goes for.
And Tony, your driver of the meeting?
I'd say it's Chris, but Rich definitely deserves a shout out, honorable mention.
Yeah, and I agree with both of you. I think any other race meeting, my driver of the meeting would have been Rich, but Chris Jackson first and a second. From me, it's got to go to Chris.
Tony said he didn't do a lot of practice because he's been busy. I think he hasn't been around for about 6 weeks, 2 months. I think he's been planning to come back at this round for the whole 2 months and been doing 20 minutes a day of practice and not telling anybody. That's how I'm making myself feel better about it anyway.
You keep doing that, John.
Yeah.
Well, I think in another 8 months, Chris is going to be getting even less practice, but we'll just leave that there for. Right, so it looks like our guest driver, the Hoff, hasn't managed to turn up yet, so we will plod on in the fashion that we do, and we will talk about the final meeting of the season, Silverstone National. For those that didn't race in the sprint series, it is the new version of Silverstone, so be prepared to dig deep into your wallets. Obviously, I was commentating on Saturday, so I didn't get a chance to race. Johnny, now we know you won the sprint series there with some good results, but you also had some knocks along the way, so it's not really a straightforward a track as it looks. If you see a picture of it, it is a little bit technical.
It is a little bit. I think a lot of the knocks were me being impatient, tired, stupid. Just some poor racing from me on Saturday night. Yeah, it's quite a good track. It's pretty easy track. There's only 4 corners or something. But yeah, it should be quite good. The 4 corners that are there are all different and got their own little bit of trickiness to them. As far as digging deep into your wallets, I think if you own the old Silverstone, you were given $14 back by iRacing when they released the new Silverstone. So theoretically,
I think
they almost
that
gave
might
it to everyone,
only
didn't they?
that
It
might
was
only
only
have been if you recently purchased the old Silverstone.
I've had the old Silverstone for ages, and I got that money.
I think it was within the last 2 years. If you'd bought it before that, you were paying full price. I paid full price, so it doesn't
Yeah,
really
so
matter
did
that
I.
much. It's not a lot of money.
Yeah, I may have used that money they refunded for something else, but the point is it was there, and people might not be aware of.
And Tony, as with Johnny, you had 3 podiums in the sprint series. Bear in mind these races are 5 minutes shorter because they're super sprint races. So we're not going to get as many laps, and hopefully we're going to have a big grid. Do you hold out any hope of being able to get amongst George and Johnny, and perhaps if they have a disastrous race or two, close that points gap at the top?
No chance of me catching Johnny for sure. And the only way that I'll catch George is if something absolutely horrendous happens, because I think there's 100 points between us, and that'd mean I'd have to be 7 positions better than him in each of the 3 races. So chances of that happening are not very good. I think I can keep my 3rd place, which is a top 3. I'm happy with that, and obviously have to up my game for next year.
And we talk about this every podcast when we talk about the reverse grids. So Johnny, you first. Hopefully we're going to have a bigger grid. So you fast guys that, in theory, qualify well, do well in race 1. We put our trust in Marco for a big reverse grid, and you guys are right near the back on a track that, like you say, it's not difficult. It's only got 4 corners. Does that make it harder for you to come through from the back, or easier?
I think the fact that it's a super sprint more than the track makes it harder. You got less time to do it. I don't think the track makes a lot of difference. It's actually quite a wide open circuit. So there is room to do stuff, but it relies on everybody playing their part in that. So it's never down to if somebody does an amazing overtake and oh wow, what a move that was. It's not just down to them; it's down to the other guy as well. Being respectful, leaving space, and it only works if it's a 2-way thing. So yeah, I think it'll be pretty normal. The fast guys will probably come through. Hopefully not as stupidly aggressive as I was last week. Yeah, I don't think the track makes a difference. I think the super sprint puts a little bit more pressure on it because there's less time to do it. But that's about it.
Yeah, just the time differential makes a difference. If you need to make up as many spots as you can in the first probably 2 laps, actually first 2 corners. And sometimes you get lucky in the C's part, and other times discretion needs to take place. So it'll be the second corner, the little complex there where it's a very slight left and then the hard acute right. That seems to be the bunching up point. And cold tires, it'll be interesting to see how things work out there.
Okay, so that is Silverstone. obviously, if you're not racing, join us on Apex Racing TV on Saturday night, UK time, for the final rounds of the season. And hopefully, providing I'm switched on, I shall try and update the scores between races, so the broadcasters can let you know everything that's going on, and we'll be able to crown a champion at the end of the night. I will try to stay off the cider so I don't make any mistakes. So, everything, touch wood, will go swimmingly. Not really much else to say about Silverstone coming up. Obviously, last race of the season. We will have some announcements on our Christmas race of champions that comes up in December, and then we sort of shut the doors until January when the new season starts. I say shut the doors. There'll be a few of us beavering away in the background, getting everything ready. But yeah, so final round of the season. Let's get a big grid going, and let's see if we can make it difficult for these fast guys to get through and take some wins. So, guys, on to iRacing news, and the biggest news that concerns our league is the confirmation that the new cars will be in the new build with the new tyre model. Tony, you sort of broke it first. Well, for me, you did anyway.
No pun intended. Whee.
I'm I know we've spoke about this car before, but I'm interested to know, you guys that are really, really good in this car, when a new car comes along, are you like, oh shit, I've got to start again? Or do you just look at it as, I was fast in the old one, so I'm going to be fast in the new one?
I think that mentality applies to a lot of people. I'm looking forward to the new cars. I've spoken to a couple of people that have had something to do with it, and they say it drives very well. The tires are a godsend, so it's nice to hear that we're getting a version 7 tire, and some of the actual supercar V8 drivers have driven the new car, given a thumbs up. So really, really looking forward to it. I think all the whining, bitching, and complaining about it's too hard to drive now goes out the window, and a few people need to put their skill where their mouth was before. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
And
That's
Johnny,
exactly what scares me, if I'm being
sorry,
honest.
yeah, I was just going to say, are you looking forward to a new challenge and expecting to be quick from the start, or is it going to be one of those things that over the Christmas period you're going to have to get some seat time in and get used to?
I think I'll be okay without sounding like too much of an arsehole. I think the new tyre model is the big difference. And if you haven't driven that, then you need to have a go. I would advise you to, and not really in the Skippy, because I tried it and couldn't really tell it was on there, but apparently it is. I'd say get in the TCR, see what that tyre model's like and how it works. Even if you do it in test mode, when iRacing goes down next week, it's worth a go. Before the V8 car. I don't know when the V8 is due to come. That's what's going to shake it up, I think, because I've raced the TCRs and we did the Kias before that, and this new tyre model seems to have really thrown some people. And I know some very quick guys that are avoiding it like the plague. Not going to name names, but they're not fans of it because they're not so quick, it seems. But then there's some others that are very quick that weren't really that quick before. So I think the new tyre model is going to change things up quite a lot. And then when you add the fact that you add the new car into it, I'm worried they're going to dumb it down. I hear all these real life drivers saying it drives more like a GT3. It's not as difficult as that. If it becomes a GT3 and we get all the GT3 drivers in, that's not something I'm going to look forward to. I like it being difficult. I like, just hovering on that edge all the time and having the rear end out and being terrified and caught completely off guard every now and then, and having to go, oh my god, I nearly just destroyed myself. That's part of the fun of driving the car. If that's gone, then that'd be a shame. But the new tyre model will definitely spice things up. It seems to suit us as a team. I think it rewards smoothness. It's going to be really interesting. It's going to be really interesting. I don't think it's going to be as straightforward as people think. But if it's like the TCR as well, there seems to be a lot more feel comes through that tyre model as well. So, which is a good thing. Which on a big heavy car like this will be interesting compared to the TCR. So, because you get a lot from that TCR, so this car must be twice the weight of a TCR car. Theoretically, you get nearly twice the feel. It'll be amazing.
Yeah, I think it'll be good, Johnny. And I agree. I hope it doesn't become a recreation of the GT3 class. But next week, I think Tuesday, the car comes out, and I'm sure there'll be I'm sure there'll be a ton of servers on iRacing next week with the V8 end. I'm sure all the Australian guys will be hosting most of the tracks that they're going to be heading to for SCOPS next year.
I think there's going to be a massive swarm of Europeans as well. I really do.
Yeah, I agree. And it'll be good, I think, to peek into some of those servers and see if some of the fast Australian guys are in there and what kind of times they're running, and we'll get an idea. I know we're on the back foot a little bit, not having any of the developmental work within our league, but word gets around pretty quick on what needs to be done.
It'd be nice for the European to have some official races to take part in as well.
It would be great.
It'd be nice to actually, it'd be.
Well, we've tried in the past to make the, I think it's 9 p.m. Friday night slot work. We had some success with it for a while, so maybe there's a chance that gets recreated, or maybe an earlier night in the week.
And something else as well that we all get excited about the new cars and that, but I suppose all your setups go out of the window. It's starting from scratch. Now I know you guys have probably got a go-to set that or some go-to sets that you tweak for different tracks, but I suppose it's back to the drawing board, Tony, is it, for setups?
I think it will be, but from experience, the iRacing baseline, whoever develops it, usually does a pretty good job in getting a baseline that is drivable just about everywhere. And I think that if folks take that set, drive the car for a few hours before even attempting to change anything other than rear gear, then they'll start to figure out what the car needs.
Baselines have moved on massively. Just as an example, I think the TCR car, again, I bring that up, hasn't got anywhere near the adjustment that this has. So it'll be interesting to see the level of adjustment you can make. Because I think it is actually quite limited in the real life series. Whereas there was quite a lot for us to play around with. But point being, the baseline is really good on the TCR. We're quite competitive because we are in that car, and the setup we use is pretty much 3 clicks away from baseline. So it's the baselines work very well.
So here's a tenuous link for you then. on the last episode of the podcast, we spoke a little bit about the new tire model, and Johnny, you were saying that you know you've first couple of laps, first 3 laps, you've got to get some heat into the tires and some pressure into the tires, and then they come in. But you was also saying that it's quite easy to go out and use your stuff up early and have nothing at the end. And then tonight we've spoken about the reverse grid races. Is that does that make the reverse grid races even more interesting, enjoyable, fun, annoying, knowing that on a track, say this weekend coming up, Tony said that he's going to be trying to get as much as he can as soon as he can. Now, with the new tire model, does that tactic flip on his head? Do you worry about burning your stuff up and then losing places at the end? I know you've got experience with the new tire model, Johnny.
Yeah, and I also do like 50-car reverse grids in the Thursday league. So you have no grip for the first lap. Pretty much nobody has any grip. So it's a real leveler. And what you find is what I've found is some of the back markers may be running more aggressive setups, shall we say, to give them more feel in that cold tire period. And they're probably actually quicker than the fast guys in the early couple of laps. And it's incredibly difficult. And you add to that, there's no grip in the sliding, and you can bring them in too quick and hurt them as well. There's a lot going on with these tires, which is why I'm saying it's gonna spin things around a bit. So yeah, they take a bit of getting used to, but they feel great once they're in. The feeling is fantastic. I feel so much. All this talk of iRacing is like driving on glass and blah blah blah. Blah. That's gone with this tire model. There's a lot of feeling you get through this. You can feel the weight of the car a lot more through the corners. So it's really exciting to have it on the V8. But it really is going to be something to get used to, and quite how it works. If it works in the same way or a different way because of the different car, I don't know. I'm in the same boat as everybody else on that one. So quite looking forward to that. But more than looking forward to a new Holden or a new Ford, I'm looking forward to the V8 on the new tire model. That's what I'm looking forward to, because that's the difference.
Yeah, good. So that's definitely something that I'm, very interested in, is this new tire model.
It's going to be very different.
Yeah, that has been one of my bugbears with iRacing. The fact that the tire model hasn't been very good. I can remember racing on R Factor 2 4 or 5 years ago with Pete Bingham, and you could lock your tires up and flat spot them, and you just sort of wonder why iRacing have never caught up. But it certainly sounds like they're going in the right direction now. Right, well, enough about the new cars and the new tyre model. As per usual, Johnny, have you heard any other rumours going around?
No other rumours. I've not been on very much apart from the races I need to be doing. Been very busy, so not been looking in the background. Nope, no idea.
And Tony, I've heard a possible rumour of a new Australian track, but normally iRacing would be advertising the shit out of it by now. So I'm guessing that's probably a non-starter for this build.
I don't know for fact, but I had heard the same rumor that there was 1 or 2 new Australian tracks in the pipeline. And you're right. They normally put the teaser pics out on Instagram. I see that they posted Lernerville today, another dirt track, which we certainly don't have enough of those on the series, on the simulator already. But hopefully, in the next build after this, we get a new track or two.
Yeah, definitely. So,
what were the tracks? This rumor. What were the Aussie tracks? Do you know
I
what
don't know.
no, I didn't hear a name of a track. I just heard that it was something to do, something that part of the deal with the new V8 eSport series, and they were trying to, should we say, rush something in. But
it makes sense. It makes sense as part of that
yeah,
partnership. But
unless they're going to do a surprise thing or something, I don't know. But I'm not going to hold my breath yet. So, guys, Mr. Andrew Hoffman has finally joined us. So I'm going to do our guest driver slot now before we move on to questions and answers. And I know for a fact that Pete Bingham has asked about 40 million questions, so it could take us a while to get through them. So let me drag Andrew in. Okay, we seem to be having some technical difficulties. Every time I drag him in, he disappears again.
And we need to unmute him.
Yeah, sorry about this, guys. Every time I drag him in, he's fine, and then I unmute him and he disappears back into the interview room. I'll try one more time.
do you have to
Okay.
give him a permission or something for this broadcasting channel?
No, he should be all right if I drag him in.
It sounds like it's ejecting him, probably because of permission.
Yeah, it must be because obviously I don't do anything for the league. So can you unmute him as well, Sam? Andrew, if you can hear us, can you unmute yourself? Okay, so moving on. We'll wait for Andrew to unmute himself, and then we'll go back to the guest driver. So I think Johnny's just gone for a poo. Let's see if we can move on with the Pete Bingham show in the questions. The first one is right.
Hello.
Andrew, welcome.
Good evening, good morning, wherever you may.
Well, for us people that live in the real world, it's good evening. Obviously for you guys, it's good morning. So where are you joining us from today?
Sorry, there was a bit of lag. I'm actually at a truck stop talking on my phone.
Excellent. And hopefully you're transporting some very valuable cargo.
I am, but it's a secret.
That's what we like to hear. So, Andrew, talking about league stuff, you've been driving with us for 2 seasons now. I'm sure you don't mind me saying when you first joined, shall we be nice and say you was a bit of a liability, although you did start to improve fairly quickly because you was putting the seat time in. And then this season, you've shown a marked improvement. And I know you've been getting some coaching from Mr. Hybrid Car himself, Mike Taliancic. Where has your improvement come from, Andrew? Is it just from the help that Mike has been giving you, or are you helping yourself as well?
Yeah, the start of last season, you were really kind because I was really shit. Um, that that one session with Mike Taliancic, which took me back to basics of what was required in the car, was basically the only help I had. The rest of it was up to me, and that's where the speeds come from. It's been slow and steady. Just recently, with the new car coming out and the new tyre, I bought the TCR just to see what it would feel like, and I've been trying to translate that onto the current car. So my speeds haven't been exactly fast, but they've been more consistent, and that's what I've been trying to translate to this car for the next car.
And to be honest, that's usually something that we tell all new drivers in the league to start with. It's not about speed; it's about being safe, being consistent, and finishing races. Because by finishing races, you will score points. Another question that just from me. Now, you change your car more than I change my underpants. Do you not think that that's a hindrance to you?
Funny you mentioned that. It was a couple of races ago. I found on tight, twisty tracks, the bump on the bonnet actually helps with braking. The more speed required on tracks, or the more open to speed tracks, I'm better in the Commodore.
Yeah, that's a strange one. I can remember a few seasons ago driving the Ford, and like you say, for me that the lump in the bonnet helped me spot or helped me make apexes a little bit more than the Holden. But there's always discussions on Discord about which car is better, and I know Tony keeps telling people, at the moment, this car, I'm not talking about the new one, but this one is exactly the same. It's just got a different shell on it. But, I do get comments, there's comments on there, especially from yourself, like the Holden is definitely faster and things like that. Surely that's all got to be in your head, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's something that's always brought up. I run the same setup on both cars. Uh, I've I don't want to offend Tony, but I've downloaded his setups, put them on the car, and I can't drive them. It's worse than driving on ice. So I do a few tweaks. Just recently, I've been getting setups from a secret admirer, and my pace has really stepped up with the new setups.
Yeah, I noticed that. I think Bathurst and maybe the round before that. How your pace had gone forwards, and Mike Frost as well at Road Atlanta. He was very rapid. He hassled me lap after lap after lap, but couldn't get past me. But whatever you are doing, maybe one day you'll share the secret. But whatever it is that you're doing, keep doing it because you're slowly moving up through that pack.
Yeah, it's not really a secret. It's basically being smooth. Going too hard into a corner, if you're soaring at the wheel, it's going to cause problems. So I don't know whether you've looked at my driving in early season to now, but my driving has got a lot smoother. And there's a reason why you saw at the wheel, and you've got to sort out why you're doing that. Once you sort that out, that's where your speed comes up.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I just wish I could put those words into practice. It's very hard in the heat of the moment to do that. Anyway, Andrew, like I say, you've been racing with us now for 2 seasons. Being a lorry driver, you know, you're away during the week most of the time, not get a lot of chance to practice, but you still get up at silly o'clock in the morning and race with us week in, week out. What makes you enjoy our league so much?
I've had a look at a lot of leagues, and it's just there's respect for each driver knows what other drivers are capable of. In other leagues, I think that care factor isn't there. There's only one other league that I attend from time to time when I get the chance. But this league, there's a lot of respect for other drivers, and more or less everyone knows their place in the food chain. So, yeah, that's why I'm there at silly o'clock, and I enjoy the league for that reason.
Excellent. And I'm sure when you're up at silly o'clock in the morning, I must say you've got a beautiful dog called Sarge. I'm sure Sarge is up with you watching and helping out.
Sarge, yeah, is always there with me. He's a bit of bit of me pit crew. The only thing I have to get him to do is make me coffee, and then he'll be the perfect pit.
Right. So, Tony, any questions for Andrew?
Not really a question. I do want to say that we've seen great improvement from Andrew over the past year, and he's a good example, along with Mike Frost, of not giving up and staying with the car. You know, it's for some people it's very easy just to give up, but Andrew's stuck with it and starting to show some pace, which is nice. And he's gained confidence, which is really important. And the only way that you get that type of confidence is to continue racing with guys, and you take your lumps every once in a while, but certainly progress over the last 2 years or 2 seasons has been noted.
Yeah, thanks, Tony. You gave me some advice one day there, and I said I wanted to start from the back of the pack, and you said to me the only way you're going to learn is by starting at the front on the reverse grid, bit the bullet. Yeah, so I really got to thank you for that too.
I don't know if everybody's going to thank me for that, Andrew, but I do honestly believe that the only way that we get experience is to actually be put in that position, and I think you've done well. So just keep plugging away at it, and pretty soon we'll see you climbing up the ranks even more.
I don't think I'll ever be as fast as you, and that doesn't worry me. But in this league, there is always someone coming in, and there's always going to be someone to race against. And when you're bumper to bumper, that has to be the most exhilarating part of racing.
Yeah, well said, Andrew.
Johnny, any questions from you to Andrew?
Not really questions, just echo what Tony said. It's nice to see the improvement. Hi, Andrew, by the way. And I have to say, not trying to stir the fire or stoke the fire or anything here, but I totally agree with Andrew that the cars are different. I know they're the same, but I don't know if Andrew will agree with me on this, but I'll even pinpoint where they're different, if you like. Because there's definitely a difference for me, and I've got a few Scots drivers that agree with me on this. Won't name any names, but the Ford brakes better than the Holden. It's a bit easier to brake, but the Ford's a bit harder to get on the power. And that is that, and I prefer to have the slightly easier braking for me. And I'll deal with getting on the power in the Ford, but that's the difference. And I know that the cars are identical, and everyone swears that they're identical. They definitely are different for me. It's a very small difference. I wouldn't say I'm quicker in any lap time with either one, but I can definitely brake better in the Ford, but it's harder to get on the power. The Holden's a little bit harder to stop, but it's easier to get on the power. That's
That explains.
yeah. But I'm 100% convinced of that, and I stopped because people thought I was joking when I was putting it up, and I kept going on with it. And you're saying nope, they're the same. Here's the rule. Here's the regulations. Here's the data. They're different. They behave different. And like I say, I've got a few people agreeing with me, saying exactly the same thing when I haven't even said that, and they'll tell me the same characteristics that they're different as what I've just said to you, and that's before we'd even conferred. So it's definitely something that's out there. But yeah, I completely agree with Andrew on that one. Even if others don't, including iRacing and the designers.
I just think you're delusional. But either way, it won't make any difference in a week's time because you'll be in a new car.
Yeah, exactly. And it's nice to hear you focusing on smoothness, Andrew, because this new tyre model will reward smoothness. So keep up the good work.
Yeah, thanks, Johnny. And thanks for your box of excuses too. They're building up in my box, and I can jump to anyone I like at any.
They're free to use, no problem.
Final word from you, Andrew, before we let you go. Anybody that you would like to thank? Any advice you want to give anybody, or anything else you want to say?
First of all, I'd like to thank you, Clyde, for the league, accepting me into the league. I really didn't expect to get in, but yeah, I'm glad I'm in there. Glad I'm showing other drivers that the improvements. Also, to every driver in the league, they're all good guys. Anyone that joins, within a race or two, works out how good these guys are. To everyone else behind the scenes that don't get a mention, to Racetech, and on a secret note to Alan, who's been sending me these setups. They've been absolutely brilliant, and I think you'll see an improvement from Mike this round.
Yeah, well, thanks for your kind words, Andrew. Obviously, the league isn't just me. There's plenty of other people in the background beavering away. But it's always nice to hear that we're doing a good job. We do let anybody in. You've only got to look in this room to see the sort of lunatics that we let into the league. But what we tend to find is, the good guys and girls stick around, and the idiots tend to disappear of their own accord. So that, ladies and gentlemen, was the Hoff, Andrew Hoffman. Andrew, if you need to get away, then feel free to go. But if you want to stick around till the end, again, feel free to stick around.
I'll stick around for a while. Thanks, mate.
Good man. Right, so let's get over to Pete's question board. So, question one for Branderman. See what I did there? So I'm guessing it's for both of you. What is... Oh, Pete's English is shocking. It's nearly as bad as he's driving. What is your biggest on-track and off-track regret from this season with one to go in the main series? So, Johnny, you first. What is your biggest on and off-track regret this season?
Oh, I'll tell you, you might have to go to Tony. I got a brain like a sieve. I can only just remember last week, let alone the rest of the season. You have to give me a minute to think about that one.
Okay, well, we'll throw that over to Tony then, because I know Tony could probably give us a full race rundown of the first ever race we did in the series. So, Tony, your biggest on and off track regret this season?
My biggest on-track regret was not scoring enough points. Where was that? Probably Watkins Glen was my worst performance this year. I think if I think about races this year, I'd say that I may have been a little too aggressive in a couple of spots, and that cost me some time. Off track, I don't think I have too many regrets off track. I think I handled myself okay. So I think that's it.
You have a chance to think, Johnny?
Yeah, it's not helping. The one thing I will say is I don't really have regrets. They're a bit pointless. What's done is done. You move on. So yeah, I can't think of anything obvious. Like I say, it's a bit pointless. What's done is done. On to the next one. That's how I tend to look at it.
Yeah, that is very true. And I know the question wasn't aimed at me, but I'm going to answer it anyway. My biggest on-track regret this season is just not having the time to put practice in. That's always been a bugbear of mine, but work and real life come first. And my biggest off-track regret is the same as every week: not picking the correct lottery numbers. Next question from the Pete Bible is: who do each of you consider to be the biggest improver of the season? So I'm going to start that one with Johnny.
Rich Warmingham. Easy on that one for me.
Nice and simple. And Tony.
Yeah, I'd agree with Johnny on that. Harold Stadler comes to mind, but I think that we had already seen improvement from Harold last year, and he's continued that improvement. But Richard's taken a big leap this year, I believe.
And obviously Andrew as well. Andrew's made some big improvements. Still got a little way to go, but he's made a lot of improvement this season. So yeah, fair play to Andrew as well.
Yeah, and from me, at the top end of the grid, I think I agree with Tony. Harold has continued his improvement, but we're still sort of waiting for him to break into the top 5 week in, week out. So yes, Rich Warmingham definitely would be at the top of the grid. And then at my end of the grid, I definitely think both Andrew and Mike Frost have improved. But I'd also like to throw into the mix Steve LaValle. I know he doesn't race with us regularly, but he's certainly putting some pace on. And also Lane O'Connor. As much as I dislike him, and as much as
Don't we all?
he gives me abuse, all day, every day. He certainly, when he puts his mind to it and he's not having problems, he's getting rapid as well.
As I said, I think we all work together really in XVR. So and it's paying off. Everybody seems to be getting quicker except me, but that's all good.
Oh, you're already an alien.
Right, it's been a fun one from Pete. who is the most annoying commentator and why? Now, I did ask Pete whether he meant Apex or ESIA, and he said any commentators. So, bearing in mind the most annoying commentators at ESIA are definitely Pete and Bill, because I'm usually perfect. Let's talk about Marco and Sam. Tony, either of those two annoy you on a regular basis?
The only thing annoying about either one of them is Marco and the fact that my wife is in love with his voice.
Oh, I have the same problem. That me and my wife being in love with his voice.
And on the easier broadcast, the most annoying person is Pete because he actually thinks he's funny.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree with that. Yeah, and Johnny, annoying commentators. Anything from you?
I'd probably say yourself and Sam from the both broadcasts, purely because you both use that word netcode all the time, and it winds me up.
He does that on purpose, you know that, right?
Every right, there was net. I mean, Sam's the worst for the netcode. I have to say it. You can see the cars crash into each other and everything crumble. There's no netcode. I think that was netcode there in that incident. I think he's trying to be nice to the league. But he uses that netcode way more than anybody else. And yeah, my favourite word, as everybody knows.
And Andrew, if you're still with us, do you have a most annoying commentator?
Probably Marco. Same reason. The fiance loves his.
Yeah, I think we're going to have to change Marco, aren't we? For I don't know, someone with a high-pitched, squeaky voice or something like that. Right, next question from Pete. I'll have to go to Tony first because Johnny's going to have to think about this one. What has been the thing you remember from another driver from the season so far?
Michael's amazing fuel saving abilities, which I'm in complete admiration of.
And do you know what? That was the first thing that sprung to mind as soon as I just read that question. Johnny, what about you?
The most amazing thing from another driver. Was that the
Well,
question?
not amazing, just what's been the thing.
Probably, I have to say for me, Chris Jackson's pace around the last race was properly stunned by that, because it wasn't a fluke; it was every lap. Yeah, that's probably been the most impressive thing for me. I mean, Talyancic doing no stoppers, that's nothing new to me. I know how good that bloke is. And no disrespect to Chris, I know how good Chris is. But his pace was ridiculous. And it was definitely the most standout thing for me.
And Andrew, what's been the most standout thing for you from another driver this season?
Probably Rich. This season I was very close to him, and as you've mentioned, the most improved driver is skipped away, and it's like, oh come on, I wasn't far away. Now I've got to try and catch you again.
Yeah, I know the feeling with that. Question 5 from Pete. Now, as Tony has already ruled himself out of the championship, I'm just going to throw this one to Johnny. Are you willing to do a multi-21 in the last race of the season if it got you to win the championship? And if not, what's wrong with you?
Hopefully I won't be needing that. And it wouldn't be for me to do it. So contrary to popular belief, I don't send out orders or anything. There's no boss of XVR. We are all the bosses. So we all help each other. So if anything like that goes on, it's because they want to help me, I want to help them, whatever series we're in, and we all try and do the sensible thing. I think there's a fine line with it. I think it would have been a little bit off last week to do that because the gap was so close. And then with a bigger gap this week, a bigger cushion, if you like. I don't think there'd be any real need for it. It's not really fair on everyone else. You know, it's just a bit of fun. There's no money up for grabs, large sums of money or anything like that. So it's, yeah, I think it's best to keep it fair. You know, at the same time, they're not going to get in my way. If I was coming through in a reverse grid and I was quicker, they will get out of the way for me straight away, because that's what we do for each other. But to actually physically slow down and wait for me to give me the spot, I don't think that'd be right. So, yeah, that wouldn't happen.
Fair enough. So, Tony, next question. If you could sub anyone into your team for next season, means you get rid of the slowest one, who would you choose and why?
Which slow one would I choose, or who would I choose?
No, who would you sub into the team and why?
Wow. And of anyone, or just anyone in the league?
I would go for anyone in the league.
Oh, now you're going to have to give me a second. Hang on. And this means I could, like, pick someone from another team as well, right?
Oh, yes.
I would take Justin Ribello.
Interesting. And why is that?
Well, he's from Canada. He's a good guy, obviously.
Another bloody Frenchman. Right, Johnny, let's see if we can get a serious answer from you.
If I probably, to be a little bit spicy, say Victor Tanaka. It'd be interesting to have over. Have a few NQR secrets. He's got plenty of pace. It'd be a good one to steal.
Yeah, and I think from me, it wouldn't matter who I subbed in as long as I got rid of Pete. Right. So, a bit of a serious question now. And we're going to start with, I'll tell you what, I'll answer this one first. Reverse grids, good for the slow guys or just annoying? Now, the reverse grids to me haven't done exactly what I hoped they would do, because I hoped it was going to make it difficult for the fast guys to get through every race. I weighed that up against the fact that we had the reverse grid for the feature race, which gave the fast guys more time to get through. But I think in a weird way, from my point of view, they've worked. And from what we spoke about earlier with the new car and the new tyre model, I'm sort of half expecting them to work even more next season. You know, just going on the fact that, you know, you can use your tyres hard at the start if you really, really want to. But then, you know, you're going to lose your stuff up. And, you know, I just think that's going to throw a whole new tactic into reverse grid racing. That's my point of view. Johnny, you know, a bit different with you guys because you're the fast guys, you and Tony, and you have to come from the back. You know, is it an annoyance for you? Would you rather just have 2 straight qualifying sessions, or start race 2 where you finish race 1? Or does it, in a weird way, throw in a bit of excitement for you and, you know, a bit more of a challenge?
Yeah, both really. I can see both sides of it. We sim racing, everybody does reverse grids. I think it looks good. I think it can be a hindrance to people, the slower guys and the faster guys. It makes it more of a lottery rather than a judgment of pace, because if you bear in mind, you know, like a guy in 12th and the guy in 13th, they might have fluctuations in their lap time, so they can gain on each other maybe half a second a lap, maybe a second a lap if the guy makes, you know, you get more common mistakes Someone gets the arse end of the car out, he loses a second. The guy behind can catch. What you got to remember with the front guys is that a tenth of a second is 2 tenths is quite a big gain. So if you literally get stuck behind, say Tony gets through, he's in the lead, and I don't, and I'm stuck behind somebody or 2 cars for 2 corners, that could give Tony 7 tenths, 8 tenths, a second head start. That's 10 perfect laps for me to get anywhere near him. It's a huge, huge hold up, and he's not going to make a mistake. That's where so it just makes it a bit of a lottery as to how you get through the traffic. I mean, I think there was George got through 1 lap before everybody else in one of the races last week. He was 5 seconds clear. I was catching him at 3 tenths a lap, which is probably the biggest speed difference I've had over George. Whether he was pacing himself and being careful, probably, but he could afford to because he had such a big gap. But I was catching him 3 tenths a lap, pretty much every lap, and I got nowhere near him. Only half the gap. And it's all because he got through that traffic early, and I didn't. Or I did make some mistakes along the way, but it's so difficult for the quick guys. If you get held up literally for 1 corner, that could be 5 laps of the race gone, just trying to catch up. You know what I mean? Because of the big difference. So I don't think it's fair for the fast guys if you're racing on pace and want a true race. I think it makes it a bit more of a lottery. I am sitting top of the table, so it's a bit ironic for me to be moaning about that. But yeah, I don't think you get a true reflection. There is a lot of luck involved, which I've benefited from this season, obviously, with the points table. So it would be fairer not to have them, but they do look good and they are fun. So yeah, I can see both sides of it really.
And same to you, Tony. What's your opinion of the reverse grid?
I think, based on what the question is it good for the slow guys or just annoying? I think it is good for the slow guys, and I've said this many times. I think that, they need to have that experience at the front of the grid, especially on the starts in the first lap. I think it's important for them to have a lot of cars around them and get themselves comfortable in that situation. And I don't think it's good in a small league such as ours for the same 3 guys to win each and every time. And I know that kind of happens now, even with the reverse grids. But if it was straight up, start first, second, third in the second race or third race, I think the gaps become much bigger, and it's detrimental or maybe a little disheartening to some of the other guys. So I think at this point in time, it's still a good thing. And I enjoy the racing back there. I enjoy trying to make it through, and I like the tight quarters racing as well. So, I think that we revisit that when we have 35 or 40 cars every meeting, and then think about and see how many guys are right at the very top. Because as Johnny says, sometimes you just want to have an all-out fair fight. And if you had 10, 15 guys capable of winning every single week, it might be, worth considering.
That's a fair point, I think. If yeah, but I mean, I kind of agree, but I disagree because I know what you're saying about it's beneficial, but then if the slower guys are just starting at the front and watching their mirrors all the time, that's not really the good practice. I don't think. There's an argument for if they're surrounded by cars of similar pace at the back without having to worry about us idiots pushing our way through, they'd have a better race. And ultimately, the finishing order, generally speaking, is still the same. But what the reverse grids do is separate that order. So race 1, for example, will be last week, me, you, George, we'll all be very close. But in race 2, you'll probably get the same finishing order, but the gaps between me, you, and George are much bigger because it depends on who gets through the traffic, and there's actually no racing between us because we're nowhere near each other because of our different pathways through the slower cars. And does that help or hinder them? You know, does it cause more separation between them because we're coming through like a bowling ball, pinging off the, you know, trying to get through and separating those guys from the people they should be racing? I think there's an argument for both sides.
Yeah, I agree with you, Johnny. I think that there is, and maybe this is a question that we should throw out to the league, the guys within the league, and ask for some opinions on it. Not to get into a big argument over it or anything else, but it would be interesting to hear the opinions of some of the other drivers that what they think and whether or not it's useful to them or not. Then the league admin can take that information and make a decision on where they're going to go.
Even maybe a compromise of just reversing the top 10, like the BTCC, for example. Where you draw a number from 6 to 10 to see who's on poles, and nobody can finish 10th.
Right.
Claim.
Right.
But
yeah.
But then if you had slightly bigger grids, then you're reversing the top 10 fast guys. That could be interesting.
As I said, I think if you had enough of them, and we're getting close, if Michael comes back next year and, Victor's at every race, Chris is every race, Nichols there.
100%. I just think if you...
We could be in that position, sure, yeah.
Yeah, but I think if you put the slower cars in front of the faster guys, what you end up doing is just separating everybody. It's great as a spectacle for the first 3, 4, 5 laps. But after that, everybody has become so separated that you actually nullify the racing. And it's just then hot lapping to see if anyone's actually closing gaps. Whereas if you all started in the order you finished, you'd have a much closer race throughout the field, I think. But it would look like more of a procession, and you're not getting the excitement of cars coming through the field. So, yeah, there's an argument for both sides, but
we'll leave it in the hands of the very capable league organizer to deal with that.
Yeah, decision made. Then they stay. Pete's next question.
Sorry,
you most certainly can, Andrew. Sorry, I forgot you was there.
Reverse grids. Road Atlanta is a perfect example of slow drivers being up the front. Every driver in the league knows who the fast drivers are, and there is no reason for a slow driver to hold up a fast driver. It's just going to cause aggravation. So like yourself, Clyde, being on the slow side, you know who's coming up behind you. Give them room. You're not fighting them. Road Atlanta, I actually think I held on to Johnny for a lap, just following his lines, and through that managed to hold Rich off for a lap or two. So being in that position, let them through. You don't have to fight them. You're not fighting them. You're fighting the guys further back. And holding on to someone that's faster, you learn a lot just through that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I take on board, everything that Johnny and Tony has said. I just think that from, like Johnny says, from a spectacle point of view, so for the broadcast, it certainly makes it a lot more exciting to start with. The cream does rise to the top, and I don't think it matters whether you win a race by 0.002 of the second or 20 seconds, the points are still the same. And I also think that there are drivers out there that wouldn't have won races if it wasn't for the reverse grid. So at least it does give us some more winners. But moving on, because time's getting on. Pete's next question is very similar to one that he's asked already. I'm not going to answer it, but I am going to read it out just to prove what a drunk Pete is. It says, most memorable moment from a driver other than the 2 or 4 of you in the booth, good or bad. I think that's very similar to one of Pete's other questions. So, going to move on to one just for Johnny. And I thought this one as well. Why no drifting round corners or donuts after your Sprint Series championship win?
It's kind of a practice championship. I don't want to belittle it too much, but the main series is the one for me. I think there's been so many people I've had a number of shocking rounds, missed weeks. Everybody's missed weeks, and I think it was, they're all fun, but that was just a bit of fun. I think I was lucky. I've had a busy week. I was miserable and grumpy. So, yeah, I'll leave it at that. It was, just done. I can't even say I didn't do it because I had 0 incursions and I wanted the bonus. That wasn't the case. So, yeah, not really sure. Just grumpy. Don't know why I was grumpy. Just getting old, tired. So, yeah, wasn't a deliberate thing. Just never even thought of doing it.
So there you have it, folks. Grumpy Brandon finally admits that he's grumpy. One that I just noticed on the chat, we'll make this the last question because time is getting on. One from Trey Wiley, or Mr. Willie, as I like to call him. Do you guys reckon iRacing should put in the Nissan? Now, I have a feeling that everybody's going to say hell yeah, because it's more variety. Although I heard that there was an issue with licensing and Nissan, it's probably not going to happen. But if it was possible, surely another car, even if it's just like we are now and like we allegedly get in. Same physics, same dynamics, but a different shell. It's got to be good for the spectacle, guys. Johnny?
Yeah, it would be good, but it's never going to happen. But because of what you've just said, Gran Turismo licensing. Nissan are Gran Turismo, basically, aren't they? They're so intertwined, those two. I can't see that happening anytime soon.
Yeah, no, I can't see it happen. It would be nice. Tony, I'm guessing you'd like to see the Nissan just to give Greg a few more headache?
Yeah, we were just having a discussion about painting the yesterday. I think that it would be great if we could have had the Volvo at one point in time and the Mercedes. Obviously, the more body styles, I think it's better for the broadcasts. And
I would have used the Volvo if they had that.
Oh yeah. They were great, and so it's. I think it's good for the viewers. And it's nice when there's a little bit of variation.
And Andrew, we know it's not going to happen, but would you like to see, all 3 cars represent?
Yeah, it'd spice it up a bit more. Yeah, but the Nissan was an old car anyway. Yeah. Unfortunately, yeah, they're Gran Turismo based, as Johnny said. Never going to see it. So not ever going to worry about it.
Okay, so before we wrap up, guys, I have just got one surprise question for each of you. Andrew, next season, Ford or Holden?
Probably both again.
Johnny?
I'll buy both, but I think I'm going to be Holden at the moment, unless they do something to that rear end of the Ford. I think the Ford looks great from the front, but terrible for the rear, so I'll be Holden because I think it looks good all round.
And Tony?
I will be buying both, and now that I've just heard Johnny's comments, I think I'll be driving the Ford because I wanted to see that rear end.
That's cool, because I won't be seeing that.
Excellent. And just
Except reverse grids, of course, Tony.
from my side, it's going to be the Ford, purely on that front end. And I actually think both cars look whalish from the rear. So yeah, I know there was a discussion. I think Tony put a poll up on the Facebook page about it, and all the lovers and the haters came out. So yeah, that'll be good fun next season. So guys, we're going to wrap it up. We've gone on a bit too long tonight. I'd like to thank Andrew Hoffman for being our guest driver tonight. Johnny and Tony for being my usual companions on the podcast, and Sam for running everything in the background and keeping quiet. Obviously, like to thank Racetech, our sponsors. Don't forget, we have the final round of the season coming up this Saturday on Apex Racing TV. And if the stars align, we will be doing our podcast on the Monday, and that will be our final podcast for this season. I'm going to try and get one organised pre next season, so we can talk about who we think is going to do what, and where people are going to finish, and see if we can get some predictions. So, Andrew, before we go, thank you very much for turning up, and nice to talk to you. And we'll see you on Saturday.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and stay safe, guys.
And Johnny, thanks for being your usual grumpy self, and good luck to you on Saturday.
Cheers. Cheers, guys.
And Tony, obviously, thanks for you. I know it's not silly o'clock in the morning for you, but I know this isn't a UK slot for you. But being retired with nothing to do apart from polishing your head, you got nothing else better to do than join us. So thank you very much for being here.
Thanks, Clyde. And just everyone listening, the poll is actually tied. 10 for the Mustang, 10 for the Commodore. And I know we have a lot more than 20 members in our league, so get some votes in, and let's see. Right now it looks like parity.
I have to say, that's why I voted how I voted.
Yeah, come on, people, get some votes in for the Ford. And finally, like I say, thank you to Sam who puts together this broadcast and listens to us old gits week in, week out, talking rubbish. So thank you to everybody that joined us live. Thanks to Pete and to Trey for the questions. Trey is Vernon, for anybody that hasn't realised. We will hopefully be back on Monday with the podcast and back for the main series on Saturday. So it just leaves me to say good night from all of us and speak soon.